Hey guys, it's Matt. Just about 1 minute before I start reading chapter 23, very briefly. The Critical Drinker is a movie review YouTube channel, close to 2 million subscribers. And the most recent video, I think it's just 1 day old, Disney finally admits they went too far. But is it too late? A video like this basically proves not milk, but nobody can see it. Of course, none of the movie reviewers can see it. Sometimes, guys, I think this entire reality is constructed for a very small group of people, tiny. The movie reviewers come out once a week, now it's the Critical Drinker's turn, to say, why couldn't Disney realize that the people don't want, as he says, the message, the social justice warrior themes, pushing certain lifestyle choices. Then they lecture the CEOs of these companies like they know more than the CEOs, and the CEOs don't have any idea what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, of course, following the wishes of Not Milk. If they could have just explained that we're an entertainment company, we're not getting involved in this, and look at the backlash and look at the low stock price. It's just so frustrating to us, guys. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, whoever the CEO of Bud Light, when they made that decision to use that Dylan character to push Bud Light, Critical Drinker and others, they of course knew exactly what they're doing. Some little kid could run by your house like, hey, little kid, if we do this as a company, is it going to piss people off? In 5 seconds, the little kid would say, you do that, it's going to piss off half the country. I mean, but the little kid running by the house could figure it out in about 1 second. But these Ivy League CEOs who have the master's degrees, and they just have no idea, and they need to be lectured by movie reviewers. Maybe it is like a limited solipsism. Me, you, and a few people here are real, and the whole reality is just fake around us. It's possible. I'm starting to think that more and more. Let me get into chapter 23.
You mentioned the Critical Drinker's video. You gonna link to it?
No. Shut up. It is not pointless to study the creeps here as we have done over many years. Understanding their aims can tell us a lot about ourselves, and what we find out is very good news for us. Rediscovering who we are is part of the fun here. They know who they are, even if they don't see the big picture. In this game, we come into this hardcore universe as Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind spirit, knowing nothing of its true self. The minions that I call George Bush creatures are entities, in my opinion, playing a role here, but also not willing to do the courageous thing that you have done. Tony believes they're playing it safe. He believes they retain past life memories with a degree of knowledge carried through time so they can stay in power lifetime after lifetime, in my opinion, to continue to serve their role. They have a completely different relationship with their higher self than you do, or the part of you that's not in this materialistic snow globe. They're playing a completely different game than you and I are, and are serving here as necessary role players. Tony called their behavior game addicted, meaning they don't want to move forward as you and I have along the spiritual chutes and ladders game. It's very possible they may die of old age and then are born right back again into a body with some sort of understanding of their ancient role. In other words, it may not be, of course, a standard reincarnation for certain creeps. It's likely some are not born Tommy, as we are. They may, in a sense, remember who they were and be aided by other minions of their same ilk to return to the top of the power pyramid to, in my opinion, continue to play their role here. When truthers talk about bloodlines, I think there's a lot of truth to this from a creep's perspective. A real person cares nothing of the lineage of the body they're temporarily in. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. A lot of my family is so interested in their Irish heritage. I'm like, who cares? Who cares where the body this lineage came from? Don't you see you're more than this? In my opinion, no graduate-level truther would ever wish to attach themselves to or associate with any not-milk-created border, flag, or country name. Where do you think all that came from? The not milk. It's just another Jacob Marley chain. As many of you know, I watched Moonstruck not long ago because I tell you every time I watch Moonstruck, I'm like, La Familia, it's Johnny Camilleri, it's the heritage, You know what? It's a Jacob Marley chain. It's part of the trick of this reality. What do people do when someone asks or says, tell me about yourself, like in a job interview? It's all the stuff of this place. Or they just look down and tell the person asking about all the chains that they're wearing. Well, my straw man name is Matt, all caps, of course. My lineage or heritage is Irish American. They're just going to rattle off their chains, the attachments that the Not Milk has given them. This is why master's degree level truthers don't get the job, because they say, oh, tell me about yourself. Oh, I'm a spirit temporarily residing in a body looking to figure this place the F out. Security, get him. It doesn't get the job, but that's the real answer. Back to what we were talking about, what's generally being discussed here in regard to the sequential entity, like Melvin, as described by Tony, is in a way similar to what happened to Jupiter Jones in the movie Jupiter Ascending. However, in the movie, it appeared she was trying to advance to Tommy, to become a Tommy incarnation, as you and I are. She was given the mind wipe. And her creepy bloodline in the movie, her relatives tried to pull her back to the type of entity that she had been in the past. In the beginning of the movie, Jupiter Jones was on Earth cleaning toilets and was soon discovered or identified by her creepy bloodlines as being one of their own kind. She soon finds that her family rules the entire universe. And what a coincidence. They harvest the population of Earth for energy. She drops a vial, I think, on the floor, if I remember. It smashes. 100 humans had to die for that? The guy's like, oh, don't worry, we have a lot more where that came from. Don't ever cry over spilled loosh. The main creep in the movie, of course, is that horrible, wretched actor who played Stephen Hawking. And he's also in that Fantastic Beasts. I don't know his name. Don't comment. I don't want to know his name. He must know somebody, that actor, to get those jobs. He's terrible. Now, in the movie, they called Jupiter Jones in the movie an exact reincarnation of their mother, the mother of the creeps in that movie. They posited it like it was some sort of random coincidence or fluke. But to me, Jupiter Jones was likely the same entity as the mother, was the mother in a sense. But the movie can't really present it that way. That's closer to the truth, in my opinion. Again, Jupiter Jones found herself on Earth as Tommy, cleaning toilets, with no recollection whatsoever that she has this Masters of the Universe family bloodline lineage. Maybe she was trying to progress spiritually, like Tony's talked about. The sequentials can become what you and I are doing. They're just kind of afraid to. Kind of hits me when I watch Jupiter Jones. Maybe she was trying to leave that creepy ilk behind to become what Tony calls a simultaneous incarnation, one that you and I are, thus expressed by being clueless on Earth cleaning toilets. It's very possible that our type of entity simply can't be a big shot here in this place. Either can't be or can't be in order to succeed. See, being a big fish here is the role of that other type of incarnation. Perhaps so that's why they pull real people whenever they can into fame and into celebrity, to potentially ruin the incarnation by getting it too far under the dragon's wing. Sure, if a real person wants to work their ass off and own 5 McDonald's, sure, they can make $800,000 a year once they're done working 85 hours a week managing those 5 McDonald's. And sure, somebody can likely get 20, 30, 40 million dollars. That's not the Masters of the Universe creep level I'm talking about. Tony would likely disagree, saying, Matt, if a real person is pulled under the dragon's wing and they're a rock and roll singer, and in their lifetime they make $200 or $300 million, their higher self is learning from that type of strange incarnation as it's learning from you. And look, he seems to know a lot more about this than me. I'm allowed to have my own opinion. The no consequences people would also disagree. But I look around and see a not nilk infrastructure basically trying to ruin incarnations. If the higher self can benefit from everything anybody ever does, well, what are the creeps doing? What's the trick for? Why are they trying so hard to essentially ruin us? I mean, what they're doing to us or trying to do to us is obvious. That has to be figured in. Getting back to looking more closely at the creeps, maybe strange entities like George Soros or what they call Paul McCartney are able to come on down into a body again like a game show. It's like the Price is Right game show meets the Night of the Living Dead. Again, Tony believes some of them carry past memory as sequential incarnations, whereby you and I would be a simultaneous incarnation of higher self. If this is true, it could mean that the young man who took Barbara Bush to the prom in the early 1940s could have literally been pinning a magenta corsage on Aleister Crowley, potentially the same entity, as you know. He did notice a little stubble during the goodnight kiss. What a horrific Rocky Horror Junior prom that turned out to be for Barbara Crowley's date that night. Nobody wants their date under the bleachers in the high school gym summoning demons to the song Werewolves of London. Look around at your friends and family. Most people in this world are very envious of the creeps on TV and in state houses. It's likely the Melvin P. type entities aren't McLoving their life on Earth as much as they appear to be to most people. They want people to believe they have it all. Many of them, in my opinion, are probably miserable. Tony would say they likely fear taking the next spiritual step, as we're doing now, because what we are doing is pipe-hitting difficult. We're playing the highest spiritual game available in this place. They're not. Remember, everything here is backwards? They are playing it safe, wearing emerald green life preservers on magenta speedboats. We are experiencing a material plane ass-kicking that our spiritual whole is benefiting from. Real people like us want to learn as much as we can and then get the heck out of here. We don't want a second date with Barbara Allister Bush. The creeps either can't leave now, can never leave, or are simply afraid to move on, as Tony believes. I think some of them generally understand their role in this reality, and that may allow them to justify their creepiness because they know their role is necessary here. Of course, the people around us, our friends and family, have no idea what their own lives are for or what they're doing in this place. Most people seem like they're wasting their opportunity that they're given in this life. Almost all of them are fooled to serve the system that these creeps created, and our friends and family actually work very hard to cozy up to it and serve it and beg for its rewards. Perhaps many creeps don't want to leave this part of the Chutes and Ladders game because Jared Kushner lifestyles are still alluring from their perspective. I don't know how that's possible, though. How could the same old Naked Twister game, the Caligula edition, be interesting after hundreds or even thousands of years? You watched Scarface, right? The club featured in the movie Scarface, the Babylon Club. Like, come on, here it comes again. Come on, stop it. Let that shit go. We're tired of it. I'm pretty sure the shallow pleasures of fame and fortune and weird sex magic would never be very interesting to real people like you and I. How many times can you get a blowjob on the back of a magenta speedboat and still be excited by it? After so much of the same materialistic nonsense, lifetime after lifetime, for maybe thousands of years for some creeps, anything new to them is probably highly coveted, simply because it's new. Is this why the sex has to get more and more perverted decade after decade in order to move their cemented needle forward? It was probably a great day for them when the Chicken McNugget was invented, and on that day, they shoved a 20-piece down the front of their pants to celebrate a new experience in a tired old game. Hey, I'm not holier than thou. I think George Bush lifestyles would be fun for us for a few months, but sequential incarnations like Sting may have been doing their weird shit for thousands of years. That's perhaps why what they do in society gets sicker and more perverted decade after decade after decade. Real people would quickly get tired of such materialistic superficiality. It's probably the reason why Mick Jagger 40 years ago goes off with, goes off to get with David Bowie. You see, supermodels and the natural obligations are no longer exciting, I guess, to their ilk. Too much of a good thing turns bad, doesn't it? Just as 2 hot dogs on a fresh bun taste wonderful, the third hot dog gets gross. Maybe these creeps are experiencing the hot dog effect every day, which has many meanings to them, if you catch my drift. Go watch the 100-year meeting scene in Netflix Sandman comic series, Episode 6, Season 1. I'm referring to Part 2 of Episode 6, which is the final 30 minutes. But watch the whole episode if you can. The first part of the episode, as Death, or a woman that represents death, collects up the dead, it's a great segment. But what I'm going to refer to in a moment is the second half of Episode 6 of Sandman. In the second part of the episode, a godlike being called Dream is the star of the comic book series, as well as the Netflix recreation of the comic book series. Dream gives a man in a bar, I think this is about the 15th century, gives this man in the bar a taste of immortality. Dream has made a bet with his sister, Death, that this mortal who has been granted immortality, will, after just a few hundred years, grow very tired of this earth and beg for death. Now, Dream turns out to be very wrong. The lowly man who is given endless life on earth in the 15th century is absolutely thrilled by his immortality predicament. He comes back to their same meeting spot. This man comes back to meet with Dream. Dream wants to observe why a mortal keeps wanting more of this. Dream can't understand it. They keep coming back to the same bar every 100 years on the exact day to discuss his life with Dream, and Dream asks a few questions. Now, this man, though, is always looking forward to experiencing his next 100 years. In some meetings after the 100-year period, he returns as a rich and successful man. In other meetings, after a 100-year period, he's beaten down and homeless from bad luck in the prior century. No matter how good or bad the prior years were, that century was, no matter how horrible or how wonderful, this man always looks forward to 100 more years of life. And Dream can't believe it. You and I can't either. The man in the episode who's loving his earthly life, in my opinion, represents the minion class, or who most of the truth community calls controllers. Nothing more than a minion that serves the not milk. And not technically immortality either, but potentially as a sequential incarnation, coming back into a body with potentially memory of past lives or full recollection of who they are. Maybe. Who knows if one size fits all? Maybe Melvin P. is listening to this now. Melvin P. typically listens. He's like, I don't have no memory of past lives. Maybe it's just a few in the creepy room. I mean, who knows? Again, if their face is plastered all over the television, like Melvin and Bezos, and everybody on Earth knows them, and they're in the Forbes richest list, that to me, that's a lower level minion. It just is. In this reality, especially in fiction and legend, immortality is posited as an incredibly wonderful thing for some reason. To you and me, I think I can speak for most of you, this concept of immortality and chasing after it is for the birds. Somebody had an immortality wand around us in a crowded park or a crowded subway. Like, get that thing away from me. Don't you want to be touched by it? Hell no. Everybody's lining up to be touched by it. Get that thing away from me. I think I can speak for you. This immortality theme and how wonderful it is, like everywhere. I just watched the third Indiana Jones movie, the one with Sean Connery. What is it? The Last Crusade, which to the movie reviewers is so great. I guess it is great compared to the absolute trash of today. To me, it's a very average movie. But in that, the Holy Grail brings immortality and saves Captain Ramius in the end from a bullet wound. A newer legend than the Holy Grail speaks of the Fountain of Youth, and some retarded explorers search for it throughout the Caribbean. How absurdly ironic is that? The jerk looking for the Fountain of Youth for immortality is out there risking his life. There's like a 50% chance every day he could be dead from a shipwreck, battling with indigenous peoples, battling with pirates, whatever. He could be backstabbed by a member of his own crew on the pirate ship. He's risking death every day, looking for looking for a source of immortality. You should just be enjoying your time that you have here. Do you expect to find this thing? Maybe that's the comical nature of these stories that reality presents, like Humpty Dumpty. Only real people like you and me can see through this bullshit. I mean, I don't know what explorer was associated with the search for the Fountain of Youth, and please don't waste a comment. I really don't care. It's all not milk stories anyway. Was it Ponce de Leon or Balboa or whoever? But you think about it, and it gets back to that pitch meeting, or how did it go in the initial meeting when somebody introduced the idea? Somebody came up to Ponce de Leon, roaming around Portugal or Lisbon or whatever, and he says, hey, there's this thing out there called the Fountain of Youth. Well, what would be the first question out of his mouth? Well, how do you know? What proof do you have? Because her Adam's apple was as big as her balls, or whatever it was said in the 40-year-old virgin. Well, how do you know? So you have no proof. Oh, because this guy told this girl that told this guy that told this guy that told this indigenous person that rowed this boat over to this person who told my sister's cousin's brother's uncle that there's this thing and you should go search for it. Oh, really? On that rock solid information, I'll pack the ship up, get the crew together, and we'll be on our way tomorrow morning to risk my life looking for this thing on a whim. Matt, these are real historical accounts of what really happened. Are you so sure? It could certainly be a Humpty Dumpty. He just sat on a wall. He's not real. Even if it's real, it still can be a message, like that retrocausality message to us. Even if there was some fool running around the Caribbean looking for a fountain of youth, still we can take the message away, interpret it like we're interpreting it now. He's risking his life every day looking for a fountain of youth when he's wasting day by day looking for it, when he should have been reflecting on what he's doing in this life and back in Lisbon, reflecting on his own sense of self and what he's doing here. He was not put here to run around to find the ultimate Jacob Marley chain, the ultimate attachment to this place. The King Kong chain of all chains is the fountain of youth or anything that offers immortality. If the Holy Grail offers it, I don't care what the Holy Grail is. I'll offer it up to a flea market. I put the Holy Grail into a flea market before I would take whatever it has to offer if it's immortality. Ugh! I'd rather own a chia head than the Holy Grail if that's what it was going to offer. A chia head. It's not just chia pets. Somebody bought me when I started to go bald, the chia head. You know, chia. I'm not joking. I'd rather drink from a chia head than the Holy Grail. Hollywood, the dark agent for the not ilk, loves to depict people in its movies running around searching for some form of immortality. Justin Timberlake's, what is it, About Time, where you had a little time countdown on your wrist. If you hit 0, you died. Other than that, you're stuck at age 26. It's the same thing. If you could gather up enough time and put it into your wrist via the Luciferianase or whatever they put in their Luciferian mayonnaise into the wrist, you could stay immortal. It's all, and what did he do? He ran around desperately looking for more time. Screw that. What to most people would be the granting of a beautiful wish, I think would be a curse to real people like you and me. Back to Dream in Sandman, Dream's attitude is, what kind of creature would want so much of this effed up place? I think you and I see his point. Well, Dream, if you're listening to me, let me tell you, don't you know about the Melvin P. type of incarnation that runs around this place like rats in a barn? It appears they either want more or are scared as hell to take the next leap, as you and I have. I don't think there's any way a real person like you or I would want the fate of the man who meets with Dream every 100 years. If a wish could be granted and this offered to me, I have no interest in being 25 years old again or to cheat death in any way. I doubt any real person would accept this wish from any Aladdin-type genie that pops up. I've asked my friend Greg, if somebody could wave a wand and make you 30 years old again, would you do it? He's without hesitation. Here's what Greg says. Hell no. Well, that's close. He didn't even ask me if he had to give anything back in return or what Faustian bargain or price needed to be paid to do it, which is the repeating theme in many of these types of tales. For example, stories that may offer somebody 1,000 years of life, but then at the end, like some devil comes calling for his payback, right? I said to Greg, you don't have to give anything in return. There's no Faustian bargain. Of course, it didn't matter. It's like I wouldn't take it. Still not interested in being 25 again. Neither am I, and I bet you aren't either. If you are, though, if this really appeals to you and you're listening, it's all different types here, you may be a real person, of course, but you probably have a lot more work to do. We understand that this life is just a tiny train stop. As one sees the big picture, the overall importance of this particular 80 years diminishes greatly. Not that we're not taking the work we need to do here seriously, but the people around us base their entire existence and self-worth on what happens here in this place. That's ridiculous to many of us. These people around us beg for the rewards of society, like dog treats. To me, there are two parts to this place. There's the natural world and the world, quote, of man, encapsulated by society. Real people have an appreciation of the former and are mostly disgusted by what the latter has evolved into, what society and culture has become. Sickens me, as it does you, I'm sure. We appreciate the heaven that's here when it presents itself to us daily. When I see it, I announce it to the world like a madman. Heaven is here today, Zara. Look around, Zara. Heaven is here. It's kind of like that scene in, what was it, Kingdom of Heaven. Jerusalem has come. The flags and all the shit pours over the... Say, heaven is here today. Look around, Zara. Let's appreciate it. It's snuffing out the hell, at least for a few days this week. At some point, a real person develops a larger perspective, which makes this place seem very small. We see existence as much larger than one spin of the roulette wheel and placing everything we have on one earthly number. Your family and best friends have seemingly put everything they are into this part of the Chutes and Ladders game. Most of the people around us are like that man in that episode of Sandman who begged for more life, like there was nothing more for him throughout all of existence. To us, getting excited over being granted another 100 years is a joke. F that. Who wants to get up in the morning and go to work for an AI someday? Someone enters my cubicle in the year 2060. Matt, yes? I'm working that little cubicle like, what was it, Neo-Cortex, where Neo worked in the first 15 minutes of The Matrix. Matt, Dr. Theopolis wants to see you in his office, and he's pissed. You walk into the boss's office, and there's Tweaky from Buck Rogers. He's sitting in a leather chair with a round talking computer slung around his neck. That's your boss. The thing lights up as it talks and says, Matt, if you screw up the TPS report again, I'll remove your stack. The stack, that's the horrific concept from the Altered Carbon Netflix series, where they seem to have horcruxed the soul into like a glass case stuck into the back of everybody's neck. There's some creepy subject matter in that Altered Carbon. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty darn good, considering the absolute trash that's out today. So, for me, I'm very pleased to get out of this place before it comes to that. I'm very pleased to get out of this place in just this one little short lifetime. Who wants to wake up in the future someday to see like Chelsea Clinton's grandkid as the ruler of the entire world with Cerberus dogs on either side of her throne? Yeah, 3-headed hellhounds. I'm not joking. Regarding this life on Earth, real people like you and I are not all in on the arm of the Vitruvian Man that the Not Milk emphasizes as being the only thing that's important. We don't do what it wants by trying to squeeze every last drop of materialism out of this place. To do that is to fall for the trick, believing there is nothing more for us in all of existence than the petty rewards of this place. That perhaps is its biggest trick. We see Earth as one tiny hand of a much longer card game. Many of us see it as a single step forward in a marathon. This life doesn't define who real people are in totality, but look how the people around us act every day. They look like seals in SeaWorld trying to perform for the fish thrower. An old soul like you and I who is doing the proper work doesn't give a shit about taking massive risks in order to be rewarded in this place. We will not literally or figuratively backstab a friend in order to get the magenta speedboat. We require enough money to live without stress, but the real person cares not for the excess that this society demands. Compare that with the minion class on TV and the names you know in tech and in Hollywood. What is the number one thing that group does all day long, every single day? They amass money. They amass power. They amass. The additional money feeds a false sense of power that they're addicted to in this place. Remember, money is the physical representation of energy, and those creepy runes all over the back of the dollar are there for a reason. I'm not just talking about the billionaires and ultra losers like Warren Buffett. People like Harrison Ford are just as guilty. Does he really need to come back at age 80 whatever to do a horrible Indiana Jones movie for $20 million more dollars? A real person like you and I would have read the pathetic script to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Then we would have slammed our iced coffee down on the ground and walked off the friggin' set. I'm not doing this horse shit. Just walked off. You have enough money, and even if you had $1 million left, isn't that enough? The fact that they never walk away when the Not Milk comes calling is a reality giveaway on many fronts. Whatever they are, or whomever they made a deal with many decades ago, it seems like those under the dragon's wing can't walk away. The Francis Dunnery song I've talked about several times in the past says, "The only thing you get to keep is what you give away." Interpreted as, the only thing you get to keep going into the moment of death are the positive things you gave away here. No, he's not talking about charitable donations or money. What's the number one NPC behavior expressed by the creeps as well? To amass things. Stock up, stockpile, mountains of money, amass power and reputation as well. It's very similar. More and more and more, all the time more. This is a giveaway of a certain type of incarnation that's not like you. No, that's not just a lame justification to explain being poor or being a broke ass. Larry Silverfish would step up and want to tell me that. He'd say, look, now you delusional mofos are trying to make yourselves feel better again by saying being poor is great. You're a delusional little tribe, aren't you? Larry Silverfish would say to me. Believe what you want, Larry Silverfish. The rationalization is yours. We know it's simply not possible for an entity like Harrison Ford to say, no thank you to these millions you're offering me for this piece of horse shit, Dial of Destiny. It's not possible for him to walk away. Again, they give themselves away. Reality gives itself away. Why can't he simply tell the studio, look, this script sucks. I'm old, tired, I have enough money. We know it's simply not possible for a Warren Buffett type, or in this case, a Harrison Ford even, or a Melvin entity. They can never turn this offer down. The Melvin and his billion-dollar deals, even with it, if they only had a few weeks left to live, they'd be screaming for their billion-dollar deals on their deathbed. How pathetic is that, Larry Silverfish? The Not Nilk has 1,000 ways to convince the population to strive for more and more and amass and amass. It's not just about housewives of Atlanta and getting more bling. There are hundreds of benign tactics almost nobody notices. For example, when I grew up, these home centers like Home Depot and Lowe's in the United States, they didn't exist. Back in 1960 or 1970, you bought a house. You lived with the kitchen in the house for the rest of your life. If the range broke, you called a place like Sears, as Sears would send 2 men over and install a new range. This bullshit of constantly needing to upgrade your home, and we got to get granite countertops. And then now my aunt was like, oh, the granite's out. Now we have to have soapstone. Or then you get your soapstone. That shit did not exist in the past. It's all about the Not Nilk's tactic to amass. I knew a guy 10 years ago in the insurance industry who just had to give his wife the dream kitchen she always wanted. $60,000 that kitchen cost this guy. He lived in Pittsburgh, told me all about it. She had to have 6 burners on the gas range. She had to have all this endless bullshit installed, boiling water on demand at the sink. I kid you not. Maybe it was like 200 degrees or something. It was like boiling water on demand. I'd never heard of such a thing. You're using it once every 4 days, and but it's generating. You're using energy to keep it super hot under the sink. Now, I kid you not, a few years later, that bitch brought in a big rig while he was off to work, and she started cleaning out the house. True story. The one day he forgot his cell phone charger. He almost never goes back. He decides to turn around 5 minutes into work. He drives back. She had a big rig waiting, and they were like in the process of starting to clear the house out with a big rig. He had to go back and call the cops and all this horse shit. It's like sometimes, I'm glad a lot of times I live by myself here and I don't interact with other human beings. The Not Nilk gets the population to amass in many subtle ways. Things that seem benign and far removed from the deadly sin of greed. How many thousands of retirement commercials have we heard asking, will you outlive your retirement? Amass, you sea urchins. Work like the devil to pile up millions, or you will be homeless someday, having outspent your retirement. You'll be living like Duke and Duke under garbage pails as Akeem walks by. Like it would be inconceivable that somebody could actually reduce their way of life by about 60% after they retire, and one does not need to lease the same sorts of Mercedes and BMWs and Lexuses over and over and over. You're actually allowed to reduce 40 to 60% after you retire, if anybody can imagine that. Who knows? Did the Not Nilk tweak its tactic even for our own community to push the truther into prepping to perverse degrees for whatever crisis is just around the corner? Is this another technique for us to amass, where some of us have 10,000 rounds buried in the backyard and 10 to 20 years of dried food storage? Remember, the only thing you get to keep potentially is what you give away. Interesting. Turning your home into a bunker isn't really in line with this philosophy, is it? Leaving all the conspiracy behind, the main focus for us right now is part 2, doing the work in the little time we have left. The following are the two best questions in the universe, in my opinion, to gauge how much work you still need to do. 1. If someone offered you that you could actually return to age 25 with no consequences for saying yes, would you do it? Sorry, you don't get to actually go back in time. You get to be 25 right now, with the chat GPT taking your order at McDonald's. I think most real people listening to me would not be interested in this at all. I know that most people on the street would certainly jump at this chance. What does that say about who they are? If the concept of the NPC is real, it makes sense why they may be interested in finding more time here any way they could. As I've said a few times, my father was very excited to learn about the concept of reincarnation because he considered it a chance for him to go back and play high school sports again and date the few cheerleaders he didn't date. Now, I have no degrees from the Ivy League on shallow thinking, but it seems that my father in this regard is a young soul and has a lot of work to do, at the best. Test number 1, would you go back to be age 25 again or whatever? Test number 2, if a man in a dark suit knocked on your door and offered you $1 billion, would you take it? Of course, there are a few provisions and some fine print here. Once again, I remind you, this is not, in this scenario, presented a deal with the devil, where something will pop up and ask for your blood over intent someday in return for the money. The main condition is, of course, you couldn't do anything considered good with the money. You could not start a foundation for the homeless or open 500 dog and cat adoption centers or whatever. Also, you couldn't start a massive campaign to disrupt or change the system in some way by trying to expose the fraud of politics by, say, buying up every billboard on I-95 from New York City down to Florida. For example, you couldn't start a t-shirt company that sells at cost and puts on slogans like, "Keep your charter school away from my failing child," or perhaps a t-shirt that says, "Trash Bag Shoplifting Union for Gavin Newsom 2024. Sorry, you couldn't do stuff like that. You could only use the money for, you know what I'm going to say, superficial, not milk horse shit, like 5-star dinners, beach homes, cars, food, clothes, vacations, that kind of stuff. Again, somebody just hands you $1 billion. There's no price to pay, no metaphysical price to pay. Basically, you could do with it anything considered fun by society. If you wanted to spend $40,000 one day acting out the scene from Rising Sun with Eddie Sakamura eating the sushi off the naked supermodel, that would be fine in this sort of deal in our example. These two parts, returning to youth and $1 billion offered, is a great litmus test, whatever that is, for real people to consider. I think many of the no consequences people would say back to me, "Sure, Matt, I'm a no consequences person. Why not take the money?" To me, an old soul ready to graduate out of this reality would say no to both offers, unless they were struggling to provide for their family or struggling to put food on the table. We're not talking about that sort of thing here, of course. That person would get a pass. Take the $1 billion. Have fun. Remember, you no consequences devils, if you're right in your beliefs, then you're not, of course, if you're right, you're not giving any spiritual parts of yourself away for anything you do here, even for pretending to be Eddie Sakamura with his stomach sushi. There is no such thing as soul tokens to you, and you may be right. But no consequences, people, you may not be doing what your higher self needs you to do in this incarnation either. Have you considered that? If your higher self is not able to exit this game, and it is going to take many, many more incarnations, many, many more tries, many, many more simultaneous incarnations, well, if you're not doing what it wants, or the part of you that's not here, then that is, by definition, a consequence, but one that may reside far beyond this place. The no consequences people must not be selfish. And what you're doing here, you must consider you're doing for likely a greater whole, not just the you that you consider to be you. Maybe that's the two Utes. There's truth drops and everything. It's possible. Tony will tend to defend the screw-up incarnations. They rap me on the knuckles with like in a Catholic school or something. Matt, as I've told you, your higher self learns from your incarnation, and it learns from those other incarnations as well, even screw-ups, even the CEOs of businesses. Your higher self is learning from all the different, so there's no possibility of ever screwing up ever. See, here's the way I see it. And again, I'm Tommy, If Tony has understandings of these things, I am completely Tommy with the mind wipe. I ain't got no recollection of past lives. I ain't got no commune with higher self. I am completely Tommy here. I don't travel out of body. I ain't had no astral experiences, whatever. I ponder, I observe not nilk. Observing not nilk tells me a lot about myself, and I'm in touch with a lot of smart people, and I put everything collectively together, not just what I get from a few people. So one would think that if these simultaneous incarnations exist, that higher self has an intention for a particular incarnation. Okay? If that particular incarnation, whether it be a no consequences person or not, doesn't do what was intended for that particular incarnation and becomes a Jeff Spicoli screw-up incarnation, well, then the higher self isn't getting what was intended out of that incarnation. Say it was supposed to be Matt examining not nilk, but then goes off to has a great day at the beach and then just says, I'm living here, and becomes a Spicoli. Hey, bud, just becomes a Spicoli. Is it equal to say, well, your higher self will learn just as much from that as what was originally intended, the Matt incarnation? I have a little bit of an issue with this. So come email me and rap me on the knuckles, Tony, and send me another email to correct my broke ass. Back to what we were talking about, turning down the siren song of, hey, wouldn't you want to be 25 again? Or don't you want this $1 billion? One thing needs to be said here. It's not like, oh, I'm so tempted, but I can do it. It's like the first week or two trying to commit smoking, quit smoking. It's like you want it so bad, but you're just going to, no, the real person, it's not like you can hold out and not take it. You don't want any part of it. It's not at all either of those. They're not Faustian bargains, but you know what I'm saying? Either of those offers, they're not at all tempting to a real person. If you can't fathom this, you have some more work to do. It's okay. To me, a real person who is like at the highest level, ready to graduate and tell their higher self, get us out of these sorts of material planes of existence, that type of person at that level would have no interest in taking the $1 billion. I know this is all over the place, but I'm not going to re-record. It's just there is no temptation. It's not like Greg, the first week he tries to commit smoking. He smells somebody smoking around him. He wants it so bad, and he has that willpower. There's no need for willpower. There's no desire for it at all. I know that's unfathomable to many of you listening, but it's true. I don't want what I'm saying about this $1 billion test or $1 billion offer to be misinterpreted. This does not mean we need to adopt the opposite outlook either, with the need to live in a cardboard box and catch rats with shoebox traps. I hear about monks or living with nothing in complete isolation, and I think that's ridiculous. We suffer enough living normal lives in this place. Why the heck would anyone choose to compound their suffering? I think the Not Milk does a pretty decent job making us suffer enough. I'm not going to add to it. I don't think you have to go live in a cardboard box. I don't think points are awarded or extra points or bonus points by your higher self or some god sitting on a throne because you chose to freeze your ass off in some monastery in Tibet waiting for the golden child. To the spiritual part of you that's not here, or your higher self or oversoul, what we understand to be me and you here on earth may be like, in this ratio or step-down ratio, may be like ourselves in a dream, in relation to the self that's sleeping. So a step-down ratio, the spiritual part of you, higher self that's outside the material plane, the snow globe earth, okay? You are like the dreamer in a dream to it. The dreamer in the dream is the dreamer to you in the step-down ratio. I think this is coming out okay. In our example here, the higher self is us sleeping in the bed to the dream character, okay? You understand? Step down, step down, step down. You and I, in this example, are the self character in the dream relative to the higher self. So, our particular Earth dream has a-holes running around here around us like Melvin and Bezzo that play a role in this dream. I'm just taking the dream and stepping it up one, okay? We're basically, okay, we dream at night, but we're basically in a dream now. It doesn't seem like it, but we are for our higher self. Just keep stepping it up, and the fractal probably continues for a long way more than that. But we can't see too far down the line, so why bother with it? Why worry about it? Of course, this dream called the year 2023 has become, very quickly becoming a nightmare for real people. But what if the dreamer could decide, the dreamer in 2023, in this real existence, could decide to stop having this dream and it was entirely up to the entity on the bed or one level up to end this evolving nightmare. The character in the dream could assist the dreamer in the bed to end these sorts of dreams and to get us the heck out of here and move on to something else. Okay, if you're not following me, here's another example that might help. In Braveheart, the movie, she dies. What is she? Her name was what? Mudden? Something like, I can't pronounce it. Mudden, she visits him in a dream, remember? And she's like, "Wake up, William. You must wake." He's like, I don't want to wake. I want to be with you. I don't want to wake. I want to be here with you. No, you must wake up, William. You must wake up now. Okay, that's when I don't know, somebody's coming. McGregor's from the next clan or whatever. He has to. The dream character gets the higher entity up, the entity one layer up, to wake up. You do that. That's why I mock my higher self. As I'm mudding to it. Get us the hell out of here, higher self. You can help convince it. Maybe, but why not try? I don't think the person who would take the $1 billion and immediately then rent a 10-bedroom chateau in the Alps because there are no consequences, I don't think that person, real or not, is ready to end these sorts of dreams. That's a consequence, even if it has nothing to do with giving away soul tokens. As Tony described it, you and I are one of many incarnations on the ground or in various dreams, all running around at the same time for a simultaneous incarnation. The Melvin P's, the sequentials are different. If higher self is me and I am it, and we truly decide to be done with these material incarnations, then I believe you and I now can be potentially the specific incarnation amongst many that end the game for good. For example, if this notion that Tony presents of the simultaneous incarnation of higher self is correct, well, what's this incarnation over here? Well, this little incarnation over here is a Civil War, a sergeant that dies clueless on the battlefield. How did it help? Well, it gave the higher self some information, but it didn't really do too much to get us out of the game. Another incarnation over here is a Roman sex pervert. He didn't do too much to help. Frommer's tried to warn me about him, higher self. One is a Forrest Gump grass cutter. He runs for Alabama, but he didn't do too good. One is a politician who's going into his old age believing he was a great man and believing he actually helped people. One incarnation, though, is like us, is a truther who's seen through the entire trick of this reality. I think that's the one who you would think has the best chance to wake up the ultimate dreamer and say, "Get us all the fuck out of here." Call the Fagari tribe. By the way, I drop a few Fs here and there. People, it's like, that's the worst. Oh, Matt's cursing. Oh, it's like the worst thing in the world. And then they'll go watch a movie like Scarface where there's like 40,000 Fs. Well, a couple here or there for comedic emphasis. Is it really the end of the world? Now, I'm sure there are problems. Well, Tony would say there are problems with the way I'm presenting this. Well, I guess there would be. I never communed with no higher self. But is it exactly right? Does it really matter if the general point is all that matters? Tony, can we, as an incarnation, he's several times, we can help our higher self. At some point, the higher self decides we're done with these sorts of incarnations and games. So why shouldn't we try to move that process along as much as we possibly can? By the way, no consequences, people. There's your consequence. I knew it wasn't as simple as, we just come in here, we do whatever we want, we can't give away soul tokens. I've come around. I don't think we can give our spiritual essence, like Horcrux, to the Pope's abyss. But again, every incarnation's a fuck-up incarnation. The higher self cannot get out of this game, okay? That's a gigantic consequence. If we have the chance in this weird moment in history to cut, all I can do is put it in human years. That's all we understand. If I can cut 1 million years off higher self simultaneous incarnations, and I can do it right now, and I choose to just be a fuck up because I'm a no consequences person, that's a consequence. And that's potentially the biggest consequence of all time. What would an atheist say about this sort of conversation? An atheist looking for cat videos. You know, that cat that just bangs on the piano? Like, listen to these delusional motherfuckers. Put some more mozzarella on that mother. They think they're part of something greater and they're going to timeless being. Come, other atheists, leave the fire behind. Stop singing your row, row, row your boat. Come listen to this video. Listen to these delusional mofos thinking they're just a small part of this timeless being. They would have no clue what we're talking about, and they might be right about themselves. It's pretty clear it's not one size fits all here. We know Melvin P is not like us. I mean, we know these sorts of minions are different, metaphysically, spiritually, whatever. So there could be many different types here. An atheist may be right, completely right, about their own existence. To me, the Saturn-Moon matrix and the notion that we're trapped here unless we get lucky, crawl through some etheric barbed wire, or don't go into the light, or follow the exact instructions on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that is ridiculous to me. I'll talk about that with you some other time, and how the evidence, I don't think, stacks up on that side, but we'll leave that alone for now. I mean, your higher self, or the part of you that's not here, Tony's talked about this, helped in some way to create this game and this system. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not a very Christian, perspective. I appreciate the Christians that are here, but, you understand where I'm coming from at this point. Your higher self would be far more powerful than these pathetic minions running around here like barn rats, or whatever archonic little things might pop up in the astral. In this sense, I believe the no consequences people are right if they truly believe and know they're the most powerful entity here. I believe we likely get what we believe. That's why the trick is played. To those terrified of the Saturn-Moon matrix, maybe they've just empowered that consequence on themselves. Maybe one that does not exist without their own blessing or empowerment. How could it exist without them, if you see what I mean? If it could, what's the purpose of the trick the Nilk is playing here? Guys, the trick gives away everything. We'll talk about it a lot in the future. The trick, and the fact that a trick must be played, gives away everything we need to know. I remind you that lowlifes like Melvin P have an important job to do here, a job that in the end benefits real people. Yeah, it's hard. Okay, it's hard. Okay, that's the point of coming. It's supposed to be hard. Sorry. There's a Ryza from Star Trek for you somewhere else. This ain't it. These creeps facilitate the reality ruse by pulling the wool over the eyes of real people. There's a reason the word I, like seeing with the eye, E-Y-E, and I'm walking down the street, are phonetically the same. Without a doubt. That's how this reality operates with the English spellcraft. The trick has to exist in order to be overcome here. The creeps like George Soros are the on-the-ground implementers of what the screen or the Nilk wants reality to become. Some believe they took over and hijacked a reality that was once pure. I don't buy that. Star Wars needs a Darth Vader. Initially seeing the bad actor and then taking the other side against it helps us know ourselves. As at first, we must fight the Empire. At first. And then learn that the Empire itself is part of the general reality trick. At that point, where a truther or somebody that is waking up wants to go fight it, that is its last chance to suck in those who can see into its bog, positioning themselves as something that must be fought against. Thus the reason we have mistakes on purpose, and all the reasons it tries to get our attention and tries to piss us off. It's not trying to operate subtly. I mean, we actually believed that 10 years ago? No, it's simply something, this thing here, it eventually must be ignored and disempowered. It feeds on action and reaction against it. In no action, it starves out. I believe this creep class was intended by the designers of this reality. If Earth was a paradise and was then taken over and hijacked by creeps, what would be the purpose of incarnating here? I'm sorry, D, to reference your email one last time, but I would never have agreed to come in here for this sort of trauma. You're seeing yourself only as you. You're one part, who knows how small, of something much greater. And yeah, it needs you to be traumatized, at least initially. But if you stay traumatized, that's on you. You don't have to stay traumatized and all the problems you say it's laying on you. Sure, it wants to lay on somebody from the moment they're born to the moment they die. Same old thing. Here we go again. Worry, stress, fear, anxiety, the 7 deadly sins, all that stuff. Guess what? Whether this game wins or loses is up to you. Every one of these things we have the ability to overcome. Fear, worry, stress. We do it to ourselves, and we have the ability to overcome it. So if you continue to be traumatized, whose fault is that? And yes, it's for 40 or 50 years. It's very difficult here. It's meant to be difficult. Anything worthwhile is. That is part 2 in a nutshell. Everything it wants to lay, it doesn't care about the actual conspiracy of Titanic. That's the bog. If you're involved in that, you can't do the work part 2. Part 2 is, again, as usual. Anybody surprised? It's one sentence. What does it want to lay on you? Fear. What else does it want to lay on you? Worry, anxiety, hate, jealousy, the 7 deadly sins. Then remove everything it wants to lay on you. For me, I've been bringing up trivial things like the smell of the neighbor's pool chemicals, and it's also little things that irritate. All of it is the work in part 2 to be overcome. If you're in the bog researching conspiracy and it's an illusionary reality. No reality could throw this much conspiracy. It's impossible. And each conspiracy, like Titanic, has 2, 3, or 4 layers, depending on what level or how much of a graduate level truther you believe you are. No real world could do that. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. If you're there, you can't do the work in part 2. The work is one sentence. It's overcoming all the things it wants to put on you. Here's a dumb example, but you'll never forget. Back in the early 80s or mid-80s, we used to listen to this. It was a cassette tape. Was it Eddie Murphy Raw? Yeah, there was a few F's dropped, but there was this part. We used to repeat it over and over again. Back in the neighborhood, we used to put these dead birds on the little girls down the street. Where you, dead bird on a stick, gonna put it on you. Whatever. That's all the Not Milk tries to do to real people till the moment they die. Jealousy. Stress, fear, hate, covet. You didn't get that promotion. You covet, hate. Dead bird, gonna put it on you, gonna put these things on you. You can either accept them or say, no, thank you. It's all up to me. It is that simple. A lot of people don't like this because it puts the responsibility on themselves. They can't blame the aluminum Ducati and the bad actors, and it's not my fault. And Avery and Kush, I want people to blame. Bring that police line up back? What did Duke and Duke say? Bring those traitors back in. Duke and Mortimer said, Randolph, your brother's having real problems. Oh, fuck him. Bring those traitors back in. Bring that police lineup back in. I want to blame somebody. No, at this point, we know enough where we only can blame ourselves if we don't overcome it. So it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. But to me, the hijacked Earth belief or theory is as dumb as John Travolta's movie Battlefield Earth. Look how ridiculous this gets when we play it out. So because this place is surely hijacked, then if it wasn't hijacked, then just physical and emotional pleasure was the sole purpose, SOLE, purpose of incarnating to Earth many eons ago, just for fun. That's it. You've heard this one from me for many years. Earth originally then was constructed so souls could climb into a body because they can't get whacked off in the etheric. I mean, I'm sorry. That's not what my inner knowing tells me about what this place is really for. My inner knowing tells me that as effed up as it is, and they may have taken too big of a bite, maybe they've crossed over some contractual limitations, but overall, this is how it was designed, in my opinion. You may disagree. But if you disagree, was life before these creeps, before they gained power, then only about seeking pleasure under the oak trees? That's what it was for. Well, you can really learn a lot from that. Well, Matt, you can't get jacked off in a body in the etheric. I hear you, and that's a real advantage, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's just me. Yet in the face of this common sense argument, the first grade truther yells out to us, "It's been hijacked! It's been hijacked!" Really? What good would a pleasure reality system be past the first few weeks of getting yanked? Sorry, I don't think pleasure is what this reality was designed for. Although the heaven still pops through from time to time, because it has to. They can't squash the heaven out. Of course, the dual nature of this place must present both sides. A pleasure planet does not facilitate spiritual growth. If I get a spiritual ass-kicking, at least for a few decades in my life, and I can still shine bright, overcome it, then I've really accomplished something. if I've learned to keep my energy and not give it away now, like that creep Anthony Kiedis, blood sugar sex magic, what a creep he is. If I don't give it away now, then I've really learned to win. With the creeps flying around in their jets and running off to Martha's Vineyard, what have they made this reality into for themselves? They've attempted to make this earth a pleasure planet for themselves. Come on, Matt, don't you wish to be a sequential incarnation like Melvin P? Don't you really? Come on, Matt, admit it. Turning down your $1 billion. You're full of shit. You want to be powerful just like Melvin P. No thanks. No thank you. No, thank you. That's where we got to worry about yourself from that little rose in that video. No, thank you. Worry about yourself. These creeps, nope. I'm pretty sure they're in the same body. They think they're big shots. They ain't. They get the hemorrhoids. They eat Subway sandwiches on the pot. They get depressed. They're game addicted. And that really may mean fearing to play the real game. As Tony talked to me about it, fearing to play the ultimate game of becoming Tommy, the game that you and I are playing now. And you know how we know we're right? Because we're actually seeing through the trick, bettering ourselves, and for lack of better words, winning. Are you the same person you were when you were 25 or 35 years old? No? Then we're winning. It's not the greatest word to slap on it, but what would you call it? Oh no, here comes Larry Silverfish. Every time we talk ourselves up like that, here comes Larry Silverfish to talk us down. Oh, come on, Larry. Here we go. He would remind us, he'd say, you little people, always trying to talk up, making yourselves feel better, rationalizing your pathetic little lives, delusions of grandeur. Yeah, you're a bigger spiritual being and just a little... No. I want to remind you people, Larry, this is Larry Silverfish talking from his soapbox, his golden soapboxes. We control this place. We decide when you can go out from lockdown. We control World Trade Center complexes. Matt, there is no conspiracy. But you little broke-ass people have to rationalize. Oh, you're a greater spiritual being. No, Larry, I'd walk up to the soapbox. You're rationalizing, you mofo. Think about your situation, Larry Silverfish, and all you power players here, you Melvin P's with your money and your power. What are you doing it all for? You have, 75 to 80 to 85 years in a body? From the perspective of anything outside this little snow globe material of existence, you know what that 85 years is? It's this. It's a snap. In fact, from the perspective of anybody outside of here, we're already dead. Anybody in a body is already dead because you probably go in and come right back out. But all your positioning and all your lust for power and money and who you screwed over and who you backstabbed and your Faustian bargains, your deals, everything you did in this material plane for your fish treats, what is it going to get you? We're already dead from the perspective of anything out of here. You positioned for power and money and notoriety and fame and everything you did here. For what? What did that do for you? What did that get for you in the scheme that you are rationalizing your position of power here? To anybody in a 10,000-foot hot air balloon looking down, what you're doing and all the moves you made to better yourself here in terms of how far you decided to go is an absolute joke. Now get off that soapbox, you stupid son of a beach. As a reminder, never use their terms and phrases when referring to yourself. Never say something like, I'm only human. Never do that when referring to yourself. Human is their word, and who knows what that really means to them. Don't ever use their tags and terminology. Come up with something on your own if you want, like Nwanda. The term of Homo sapien lowers yourself if you believe that is truly what you are. You get what you expect, or they would not play the trick. They actually have a new one for, quote, modern man. Homo sapien sapien. I didn't stutter. I'm not Tommy Two-Time or whatever from Goodfellas. Get the papers. Homo sapien sapien. They added another sapien. I'm not joking. They created a subspecies that adds another sapien to the end of the original species, sapien, with genus being Homo. I'm not thrilled with that genus either, but we'll let it go. I guess this subclassification is the human of this century, the one that wields social media to shape reality. You see, the word sapien, I think, is likely repeated again because modern man is double dumb. At this point, from our perspective, I don't think we should try to differentiate between a real creep or that type of incarnation and a real boy Pinocchio, our type, who got so far under the dragon's wing that he or she turned himself into spiritual wood. Both types at this point serve the same not-milk master. even if they are spiritually different or originally different at the core or the essence of themselves. Many real people, of course, have made bad choices to serve the Not-Nilk's various systems here. Like maybe 1 billion people have. I don't know. Is Alec Baldwin the same type of creep that Mike Myers is? What kind of strange entity is that loser Jimmy Kimmel? Who knows? Who cares? How many of them have a full understanding of who they are and what their role on earth is? Probably very few of them have a relationship with the spiritual adversary that we call Not-Nilk. I think most high-level creeps know far less about how the world works than our community thinks they do. We gave them too much credit for way too long. In my opinion, most fulfill the intention of the dark reality or the asshole dark without being in on it or having a direct understanding of actually what's going on. It's more like a download or a frequency or a dark radio station. Who cares if a very few have a full understanding of all the reality buttons and levers? Doesn't matter to us at this point, and we're not going back into the bog. I think the many Christians here could probably predict what I'd have to say about Satan. I don't think it's a literal thing. I think the depiction of it is very close to Not-Nilk, but that's as far as it goes. But what's the old, I have some evidence for my thought process. I can just pull it out of my ass. What's the old saying about the biggest trick in believing he does not exist? If that's the case, then why does, quote, he work hard to get billions of people to think he exists? See, the biggest trick is getting people to believe he doesn't exist, but why does he work his ass off getting everybody to believe he exists? Look around you. Is that consistent with his practice, wanting to stay hidden with the key part of the trick to get you to believe he does not exist? Is that why they purposefully call our attention to every Super Bowl halftime show showing us the satanic symbolism? I thought the trick was to get you to believe he doesn't exist. Is any first-grade truther trying to inform me that, we just discovered the symbolism. We one-upped him, Matt. We caught him. They didn't expect us to analyze the Super Bowl halftime shows like we do. Oh, really? Yeah, they didn't put that there for us. No, they've never made mistakes on purpose. What was I thinking? Madonna comes out dressed as the Baphomet. In one, Katy Perry comes out riding the gigantic beast that you could point to Revelation. And no, Katy Perry on a 90-foot beast, you'd have to be some sort of genius to link that symbolism. So to me, it's just the opposite. It works its ass off, the screen, the asshole dark, what I call Not-Nilk, to get everybody to believe it's Satan, to get everybody to believe Satan's real. Look how hard, again, just Katy Perry on a gigantic beast and all the stuff it throws. It's not just Super Bowl, it's Grammys and all the stuff the truth community has broken down for 10 years, thinking, we just caught him. Oh, we one-upped him. We bested him. No, it was put there like bait on a hook for us to take the bait. Where do you think the phrase itself came from? The greatest trick that whatever it is that devil ever played was getting the people to believe he doesn't exist. Do you think just good Christians just passing that around? Or do you put your inner knowing up to 10? The phrase itself is a stuffed Lenin introduced into the general populace by the Not-Nilk. Where do you think the phrase itself came from? But overall, I hear you. I mean, their ways are creepy. It certainly seems when looking at them that they're practicing some sort of Satanism or Luciferianism or whatever it is. I'm no expert on that shit. It's a creepy group. Okay, whatever they worship, I don't know what it is. Of course, either way, no matter what you call it, Satan or anything else, it's dark. Okay, whatever it is that drives them, it's dark. For example, the In God We Trust on the dollar we've talked about recently regarding network. I don't think that's literally Satan. Okay, I think there's other ways to interpret that. I think they want our community to think that they're all Satanists. They want our community to, there's evidence behind this, guys, if you want to throw heads of lettuce at me. They want our community to think they drink blood or worship Satan, literally. The adreno stuff, remember, I can't say it. You know how that about 6-7 years ago, how big that hit? Adreno in the truth community and what that's all about? All I'll say is that subject was so obviously implanted into the truth community for the truth community to run with. I mean, to me, this is 100%. But hey, first-grade truthers, throwing their heads of lettuce, throwing their tomatoes, put me in that thing with my arms and legs, throw your heads of lettuce. It doesn't mean that certain aspects of that creepiness aren't true. Me saying they wanted us to notice this aspect, to lead the research down the adreno way. Doesn't mean they're not doing creepy stuff very related to what that was all about, or they're not harming this group or that group. Either way, I can assure you they wanted us taking that bait. I mean, this is obvious at this point. And there's lots of other examples. The Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law, the pizza, cut out the middle. Pizza, Enemy at the Gates. I'm talking about that great movie with Ed Harris, Pizza, Enemy at the Gates. So obvious setup and plant for the truth community. Matt, I knew you weren't for protecting children. Oh, come on, grow up, give me a break. It's because I'm stating the obvious that means they're not doing these things for real, and they're not. Yeah, okay, one does not preclude the other. They're still doing these creepy things, even if, whether I tell you it's all planted or not. They wanted us talking about this stuff. When something goes this big or viral inside the truth community, it's all an obvious plant, 100%. Matt, repeating a thing don't improve it. Sorry. They want these investigations inside the truth community. They want us to believe certain things about them. Matt, why would they want to expose and give things? It's complicated, okay? Let's just take it one step at a time. I believe all this stuff in some way, they're Satanists, all the things that they plant, it's a cover story in some sense we get close, but to throw us off the real scent. These creeps, is this a worthy adversary, would you say? Yeah, it's a worthy adversary. So we just beat him, we bested him. No, if it seems like we bested him, we didn't. We have to be a little bit more sophisticated. These creeps want to be seen as Satanists to the first grade truth researcher. And I know that doesn't make any sense. Well, why would they want to be seen as that? And we'll continue to discuss it. But in my opinion, their satanic presentation, let's just take the Super Bowl halftime shows or the birthing ritual with the Grammys and Beyonce and all this BS. It's too much a bait on a hook. It's too much, look at me, make sure you notice this truth community. Come on, it's obvious at this point. As Darth Vader would say to Luke, search your feelings, you know it to be true. Here's another one, an obvious plant, almost as ridiculous as Pizza Enemy at the Gates movie, spirit cooking. And then they're revitalizing this Abrama whatever with Ukraine right now. She's going to be some ambassador, and it's so obviously a plant for us to take the bait. It's actually very good news when an entire dark reality works hard on one segment of the population, us. Spirit cooking stories that infiltrated the truth community. What was it, 6 years ago, 7 years ago? So obviously put there like bait on a hook to get our attention. The use of Baphomet is over the top. It's look at me begging to be noticed. And we think we're besting him. Oh, we're really uncovering it. Yeah, no, you've been biting down on the wormed hook, and then we think we're winning. Give me a break. They go out of their way to link the Baphomet to Satanism. I mean, there's no reason to dress up Madonna like Baphomet unless they wanted that to be linked or noticed in our community. Well, please don't tell me now. I know it's not my first rodeo, but the Church of Satan has the giant Baphomet statue. I know. And I'm not. Matt's protecting the Baphomet. I don't know what that creepy thing is. I'm just saying this whole thing is a not milk presentation. The Netflix TV series, Sabrina. Half the episodes there, they go to school in the witches' school. It's a gigantic Baphomet, that all that shit. And Sabrina and Netflix, very, very satanic. I mean, to the nth degree. If they adopted the Baphomet, well, good for them. I don't care what that thing is. I don't need that thing. I don't want that thing. What that androgynous thing represents to them, who cares? They're not the same as you and I. If I see it as part of a general trick, that's all I need to discern. Satan in general means the adversary. That's generally correct. To me, the minion group is simply the adversary of real people like you and I who are trying to worry about yourself spiritual journeys. And the bog prohibits that. They serve a darker part of reality that is the adversary to those who are walking the spiritual path and trying to benefit the whole of themselves. In that sense, they are Satan. And what that literally means, okay, fine. We don't need to know any more than that. Here's a note to the first grade truthers that are still trying to throw heads of lettuce. We in this community discovered almost nothing without the creeps intentionally handing it to our community and asking us to run with it. Like Pizza Enemy at the Gates and Adreno and Abramovich, Spirico, and all that stuff. Of course, the list goes on and on and on. They're the things that come to the top of my head that I wrote here in this paragraph. If they're not literally Satanists and they are something else, that doesn't mean, I think, that they're good people. I'm just saying, I mean, there's a greater trick being played here. Do I even have to say that? Their job, it doesn't matter what you label them, it's to screw over our spiritual journey. That's the same. No matter what you believe they're doing or who they're serving or what God is theirs, a worry about yourself person doesn't care at the end of the day what they worship. I only care to see what they want me to do, or more appropriately, what they want me to do to myself. That is more important. So many things like Pizza Hut, enemy at the gates, have been planted as breadcrumbs into our community, and the truthers have taken the bait every single time. Again, back to the original topic presented in this section. By the way, Google Chrome is a search engine. Google Chrome is a search engine. So the Google Chrome thing that was implanted into our community, we were trained to chase it. It was put out there. We were asked to chase it. And first grade truthers have it backwards. You'd say researching it is not helping to correct the problem or to protect children. It's just the opposite. If there are 5,000 wacky videos considered wacky from the perspective of our friends and family floating around on BitChute on this topic, then it actually allows them to get away with more of the sick stuff or whatever they're doing. Okay, because we are the boy that cried wolf to the people around us. If we are making videos about the search engine Google Chrome, the Google Chrome, you know what I'm talking about. If we're making videos about that, then our friends and family are rolling their eyes, and the general society says, oh, there are these truth people, these conspiracy people again. It actually lets them get away with more of it if we take the bait on it. You can't see this? I can't do a 10-page sidebar to explain how something like Pizza Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law actually helped them get away with more sick stuff. First grade truthers aren't ready for this type of real truth or this book at all in general. They have a lot more work to do. If you believe the movie Pizza Enemy at the Gates and you believe everything that came into the truth community 6-7 years ago, it's actually helping to expose and helping to protect. If you believe that shit, you're an elementary school truther at best. Truth community researchers have been trained by the Not Milk like bloodhounds to be truth police and go out and find the bad guys so they can be presented in a police lineup back to the truth community. This is a big part of the reality ruse. There is no final bad guy here that can ever be pointed at and handcuffed. The Not Milk or the Asshole Dark, in a way, is part of reality itself. If a bad guy here can be pointed at or presented in a police lineup, like bring them out, the Rothschilds, the secret societies, the ancient families, here comes Aleister Crowley, the Queen, Archons, Anunnaki, demons, reptilians, greys, Nephilim, the list goes on and on and on. It's the list of bad guys that never ends. It goes on. Oh, sorry, that doesn't end. His Mandela effect change. Then if you can point at them, it's just a Not Milk minion that serves the master ruse. If the face pops up, it's just a lower level minion that serves the greater trick. If you can see them on TV, they're just a foot soldier. They're not even close to boss level. There is no boss level here. What walks and talks is just an implementer for the screen's agenda. The Not Milk is composed of a collective of thousands of systems and minions at various levels, somehow on a frequency or download, all working together somehow. Total compartmentalization, because each little unit or group doesn't even understand the whole. In my opinion, most aren't even aware of the whole of what they're serving. What ties it all together? That can't be seen. Is that what dark matter is? Neil of the Grass-Fed. Is that why they float shit out there like dark matter? Maybe. We'll ponder that some other time. Again, we're conditioned that it must be some great evil that can someday be imprisoned or something, like Satan or the Lochnar from heavy metal. I agree. There are evil minions on the ground screwing a lot of people every day. But the general evil behind these activities, and again, I think these activities, the general activities of the Not Milk to disrupt your spiritual journey they are role players. They were put here, in my opinion, for that purpose. The general force that moves all these minions can't be seen. It can't be brought out in a police lineup. It can't be handcuffed. The notion that truthers can win by fighting back or protesting. It's the biggest deception of all. It's what it wants. The first step in getting out of elementary school truth is to see that it wants to be noticed. It wants to be attacked head on like that. It's not about the greatest trick is to get people to think it doesn't exist. No, it gets up in your business and plants breadcrumbs so you notice it. I mean, we know that now. The path to winning is crystal clear to us. It's that same line from the end of War Games. The winning move is not to play. If you try to beat an opponent, you've lost. I mean, this is 100%. Winning can only come through keeping your own energy. A worry about yourself, personal journey. Where you're not trying to, what does the Baphomet mean to them, Matt? Who cares what the Baphomet means to them? You investigate that, you've lost. It's only through these self-activities and keeping your own energy and doing the work. What does your spiritual whole need here? It's the only way to win. Once again, boils down to a few simple sentences. You can go chase their mistakes on purpose, or you can finally leave it all behind. It's up to you. Thanks for listening.